Hello, this is Roberts from Windy Corner TV, and welcome to the very first episode of what hopefully will be a reoccurring podcast on this channel. For this very first episode, we're going to discuss the PlayStation Vita since we're nearing the 8th anniversary of the system. To help me discuss all things Vita related, I'm joined by SuperJumpReviews, aka Andrew. SuperJump, it's good to have you aboard.
Yo, what's up? It's good to be here. I'm hoping this video gets like 1 million hits so I can get like 100,000 subs from it.
We'll just talk about GTA 6 rumors.
Okay, well, that sounds good.
So, Andrew, you run a YouTube channel called SuperJumpReviews that mainly covers Vita games, and that's why I brought you on board, because I thought you'd be a really good guy to do a back and forth on the PlayStation Vita.
Right.
So, in this podcast, we're going to discuss the PlayStation Vita, our initial hype for the system, when we got it, what games we got alongside our Vita, some of our favorite games on the system, which ones were disappointing, and why we think the Vita failed. So, Andrew, we'll start with you. What was your initial hype for the system like, and when did you actually buy the Vita?
The initial hype? Let's see. You know what? To be honest, I actually missed the initial hype because the Vita came out in what, 2012, right? Around that time?
Yeah.
And I didn't really care about it enough until maybe, I want to say maybe like 6 months later to a year later. Because at the time, I wasn't really planning on getting a Vita, you know, because the PS3 was doing really well. You know, all the AAA games were coming out, and I didn't really need a Vita, and I wasn't really into portable gaming. But it was at the time when I wanted to do a YouTube channel, right? And so I figured, well, what can I cover? So, well, I hear about this Vita, this new handheld from Sony. So I figured, all right, I'll cover this. And that's probably how I got into the Vita. And then I think it was like a year later. I think my channel started in 2013. And I think about that time is when I actually got the Vita.
So what were the which system did you pick up, the Wi-Fi or 3G model, and what games did you get with it?
I bought it off of someone off eBay. I don't even remember, but it was like the Wi-Fi model, right? It was like the cheapest model. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
It was the cheapest model, and I think it came with a complete copy. Yeah, complete. I said that complete in quotation marks.
Yeah.
Right?
Vita
complete.
games rarely came with manuals, although Konami Europe did release some games in Australia and Europe that actually came with full color manuals that were 40 pages long.
Wow, how did that fit in that case?
Yeah, it barely did fit in. In fact, Summer Night 6, I haven't actually brought on the Vita, but that also comes with a really thick color manual that barely fits inside the case.
Oh, wow. So I had, it was a copy of Uncharted Golden Abyss, and there was a loose copy of Mortal Kombat. And I must have gotten some other Vita game that I didn't, what was that puzzle game? Luminous or? It was like
Luminous, that was like the Tetris game.
Yeah, I think I got that. And I didn't really know what it was. And I think I just must have sold it to a friend for like a couple bucks or something. But that's
a shame because it's a really good game.
I know. I wish I would have known. I didn't know at the time. But that's what I got. And I got like a 4 gig memory card because there was no way I was going to spend another 80 to get like, what was 8 gigs worth? 60, 70?
In Australia, I think it was like 40 Australian dollars. We had parity with the US dollar back then, so we were paying probably more than you.
Yeah, so I only had enough money for the 4 gig. And let me tell you, it sucked so bad to have just 4 gigs because you could barely do anything with that thing. Like, I don't think I downloaded a single game until like a year or two later when I got the 16 gig. Yeah.
In Australia, when we initially got the Vita, we didn't get the 32 gigabyte card. I actually imported one from Asia,
right?
Ahead of launch. So I paid, in the US, so $120 US. I think I paid about 110 Aussie because the Australian dollar was worth more than the US at the time.
Right.
But we'll talk more about the memory cards later.
Okay.
So So what were your initial impressions of the Vita system and the games, Uncharted and Mortal Kombat?
Initial impression, like, the funny thing is my initial impression was, why are these thumbsticks so small? Like they just felt like little nubs. Like they just felt so awkward. I'm just like, how am I gonna play Uncharted with these two little things? But I guess, I mean, the more you play it, you just get used to it, right? So it was like an hour or two before I got used to it. So it wasn't really that big of a deal. But in terms of like the actual system itself, like I was just so blown away. Like that OLED screen was just so beautiful. Like I just remember seeing it and I was just like so blown away. Like, wow, like this, like now I know where the money went. It went into this screen, you know? And it was like,
yeah, I still think no handheld has ever topped the Vita's OLED screen.
No,
I mean, the IPS screen on the Switch does look very good, but
right.
It just doesn't look as vibrant as the Vita.
I agree. And as big as the Switch screen is, and the fact that it can do 720p, I still think it can't touch the OLED on the Vita. I mean, it was bigger, right? Because at the time I was used to the PSP, so it was like, to me back then that was like widescreen, you know. I went back to the PSP. I'm like, why is this screen so small, you know?
Yeah, it's 4 times the resolution.
Yeah.
Compared to PSP.
So I was really happy with the screen. D-pad felt good.
D-pad still feels amazing on that thing. Like I just don't know why companies can't make good D-pads anymore. You play the Vita's D-pad, and it just feels so clicky and nice. And
I hear they have like a patent on it. Like they own the rights to like make it that way. Is that?
I know Nintendo had a patent on D-pad back in the day, but I have to look it up. Actually, That's very interesting. They might, because
I feel like that's the reason why Xbox has such a crappy D-pad, because they can't make it any other way or something.
I do have the Xbox Elite controller.
Yeah.
So actually, I'm holding it right now. It's got a really cool D-pad. It actually got like a satellite D-pad. It's like a Saturn D-pad. It's very nice.
Yeah.
The Saturn probably has one of the better D-pads as well.
Yeah.
Sorry about the tangent.
So yeah, everything was good. I like the fact that it was like almost a portable console, but it was missing a few features. You know, it was missing the L2, the R2, R3. You know, when you push in the thumbstick on the PS3, but that people don't really use that anyway. But it was just the L2 and the R2, right? But
well, a lot of shooters use like the running and melee. So running's like L3 and running,
true,
melee's R3.
You're right. I wasn't.
Have you played Call of Duty on the Vita? Has that auto running that's really awkward?
See, I'm not a big Call of Duty fan, so if it did, like, I wouldn't even notice. Like,
it had auto run system. It had auto run system on the Vita, so like the more you push the analog stick, you go into like auto run mode.
Right. Okay. Well, I mean, I don't know. You know how I feel about that game, so.
Yeah. What do you think of what do you think of Uncharted, like, compared to the console variations?
Initial impression, I thought it was kind of slow. It didn't run as smooth. It's funny how I'm saying that. What?
The frame rate like implodes in some of the late chapters.
Yeah, it was kind of sluggish. You know, I wasn't expecting that because I was so used to Uncharted on the PS3. So when I played it on the Vita, it felt a little slow, just a little bit slow. You know. But again, like the thumbsticks, you get used to it after a while.
You can definitely tell it's made by people who made Siphon Filter, because it definitely has a much more slower pace. Because you play like the Siphon Filter games, there's a lot of like slower paced stealth sequences.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. What you know, with Siphon Filter 1, when he runs, right? It's like he has to like move every joint in his body to like.
Oh, his bum looks like it's full of like, it's like a nappy full of poo. Like,
yeah, it's just like really weird and awkward looking, right? That's sort of like what I felt like when I played Uncharted.
So how did Mortal Kombat fare on the Vita?
You know, now when I think about it, I think since it was a loose copy, I think I probably sold it as well.
Yeah, I do remember you did a review of the game.
I did do a review, but it wasn't until a couple years later that I rebought the game.
As I said earlier in our pre-discussion, that version of Mortal Kombat was never released in Australia because we didn't have the R18 rating at the time. So, but I should probably try and pick up a copy one day before it becomes too expensive.
I mean, if you think about it, it runs great. It might not look as good, but I think it runs in 60 frames a second.
It does. Because the Vita didn't officially support Unreal Engine 3, which I think is one of the things that kind of killed the system.
Right.
So they really had to cut it back, but at least they got up to 60 frames per second. If you look at Borderlands 2, another Unreal 3 game that just doesn't run very well on the Vita.
Oh my god! Yeah, I have another history with that game.
So yeah, I was initially hyped for the Vita when it was first unveiled in January 2011 at the PlayStation meeting, where it was called the MGP.
Right.
A lot of people jokingly said MGP stood for Nintendo Got Pwned because the 3DS launch was only a few months away and it wasn't that exciting. There wasn't that many interesting launch titles and the eShop was not going to be ready at launch. So here's the Vita. It comes along and it's, you know, much more powerful and has the promise of all these exciting games. Then the hype really started to amplify when they announced the system would have the same launch price as the PSP and the 3DS. Then Sony's like, there's going to be 30 games at launch, and that includes an original Uncharted, Wipeout, and Everybody's Golf. Plus, there's going to be hundreds of PSP games backwards compatible in the PlayStation Store. PS1 backwards compatibility was delayed by a couple of months. So you can definitely see why there was so much interest and excitement for the Vita, although the last minute announcement of the Vita proprietary memory cards did dampen some of the hype.
They sort of snuck it on everyone, right? They're sort of like, oh, by the way, you're going to have to pay this expensive memory card.
Yeah, so that definitely caught some people off guard. So yeah, I bought my Vita on day one in Australia, which was I want to say it was the 23rd. I know we got a day after everyone else because of the time difference, because we're always ahead of everyone. So they were like, nah, you Aussies aren't going to get early.
Did you have to reserve yours?
No, I didn't, because I didn't think I had to, because the 3DS, the 3DS was, didn't sell out at launch in Australia. So,
okay.
Because handhelds historically don't do well in Australia. Like PSP was relegated to a bargain bin for ages.
Oh wow! Wait, what did you think of the name Vita?
It did take me a while to accept the name because I assumed it would be called PSP 2, but then it made more sense because the PSP, while it was initially successful, it died very quickly and was ultimately seen as a failure. In fact, so many retailers were burnt by the PSP so much in Australia that Big W, Target, and Kmart initially refused to carry the Vita.
Wow.
Like, they did not stock the Vita, although Big W did change their stance, but they were just so burnt by the PSP, they weren't enthusiastic about carrying it.
But wait, didn't they eventually start carrying games for it?
Just Big W. Target and Kmart never stocked it. In fact, Kmart no longer sells games in Australia. Like, they just gave up on that.
Wait, was this just the Target in Australia?
Yeah, just Australia.
Okay, because I think the Target over here, I think they were selling games, because I remember buying some new games over here.
Oh, they would have. I'm just saying, because, you know, the management's different around the world.
Right.
So the Vita name, I actually did like it once I heard that it was Italian for life.
Yeah, yeah. People tell me that all the time on my channel.
It's like a meme now, because it's kind of like it's because I remember Kaz Hirai at E3 2011, he explained the Vita name. It means life in Italian. It's kind of ironic because the Vita, you know, died so quickly.
Yeah. You know what I say when people remind me that it means life? I tell them, all hail Vita.
So yeah, I picked up the Vita at launch. I bought the Wi-Fi only system, and I also picked up Uncharted Golden Abyss, Touch My Katamari. On the downloads, I picked up Escape Plan, MotorStorm RC, and Ridge Racer, because Touch My Katamari came with a 50% voucher for the game. And as for the memory card, I actually imported, I think, did I just say this? I imported the 32GB from Asia.
Yeah. I don't remember.
Yeah, so I imported a 32 gigabyte one from Asia because we didn't get the 32 gigabyte here. It's topped at 16 gigabytes here.
Wait, so what was your total bill on that day, on launch day?
The system itself was $350. Untitled was $60. So that was 410. Touch My Card memory was $50. So that was 460 Aussie, and the memory card was 110. So it would have been like 570 Australian dollars. And you have to remember the Aussie was slightly more valuable than the American. Yeah. So even though the Australian dollar was more powerful, stuff didn't become cheaper here. So we still paid $100 more for Vita than America.
Right. Wow.
So yeah, I was initially blown away by the Vita. And as we mentioned earlier, Uncharted Golden Abyss did have frame rates and pacing issues, but it was still an incredible technical achievement for handheld gaming. The music, the motion capture, the voice acting, the general scope of the game made you feel like you're playing a home console game on the go.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, exactly like you said. It was a portable version of the home console, right? Like it might have not looked as good. Like the action set pieces might not have been as big, but it was like a portable version of what you knew what Uncharted was all about, right? It was like everything. It was like Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. It was just, I don't know. It's just like if you were like an Uncharted fan, this is what, this is the next game that you would get. And I feel like it fits right in line with like the main Uncharted series. Like if this were released on the PS3 with like updated graphics, I would buy the fact that this was made for like the PS3.
It does take place before all the other games. It's like a prequel. Right. So it probably explains why Chase, she's never seen again. They kind of never explain what happens to her. Like they just
which is a shame. I mean, she wasn't my favorite, character, but I mean, she wasn't like annoying.
Yeah. I actually did enjoy the story from Uncharted Golden Abyss. Actually, it was probably a better story than number 3, which was full of so many plot holes because they had designed the set pieces first, then the plot. Yeah. Uncharted Golden Abyss, it was a much more linear adventure. Like it took place in one location, like the first game. But I think that kind of allowed the plot to be a little bit more consistent. And the ending, I won't spoil it, but it's fun. It's kind of clever. Like it doesn't rely on supernatural elements like the other games. So, but there is still some janky dialogue because it's the same people who made Siphon Filter, and if you ever played those games, they have very weird dialogue. It
was Bend Studio, right?
Yeah, Bend Studio. In Bend, Oregon, which is the last place in America with a blockbuster.
And then they just did the zombie game. What?
Days Gone. That took forever. That took like 7 years of development, which is very weird. But they wanted to do more Vita projects. They tried to pitch an Infamous game to Sony, another Uncharted game, original sci-fi game.
Oh my god!
Sony rejected all.
Desperately needed an Infamous game on Vita.
They tried to pitch one to Sony, but I think that's why they went with Days Gone because they're like, well, we need to stay afloat. So zombie game, sure. Like I've heard good things about Days Gone. Like people do like it. It does look cool. The dialogue is cheesy, like as well, like all their games. Like I saw IGN's review of the game. There's like a scene where it's getting married, and
oh my god, I saw that scene too. I saw that, and I was just like, no. The dialogue is just so it's one of those things where it's just so cheesy that you feel almost embarrassed to be watching it.
Do you want me to say the line?
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope you ride me as much as you ride your bike.
Oh my god, yes, that was the line. I heard that. I was just like, what in the hell? Like you're telling me you couldn't think of a better line than that? Like that's just so. I don't know. I mean, it's coming from this AAA game, right? And you couldn't hire better writers.
Like that's Bend Studio. Like they make really good games, but the dialogue is always very cheesy.
There was no quality control. Like no one from Sony came down and like. Just read the script or like I don't know, like a second draft. Give me like at least a second draft,
I'm sorry, but I think that line is just hilarious. Anyway, I also picked up Touch My Katamari, which is essentially more Katamari Damacy. I really do like the series. It's very quirky, it's very entertaining and very silly. It has that very quintessential Japanese humor, but the biggest problem is every iteration recycles a lot of content from previous games, so it never feels really that fresh.
Is that game rare?
It's not common.
I don't know. Let me know, because I'll buy it now and before this price skyrockets.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's a super common game, but I wouldn't say it's super rare because it was a launch title, so it did get some sort of like rotation.
Okay. Well, I'll just wait for like Metal Jesus. If he mentions it in like a hidden gem video, then I'll run out and buy it.
So yeah, Touch My Katamari, it's a okay game, but if I was to pick one for newcomers, I would steer you towards Katamari Forever, because that has the most content, and I really love the pencil sketch look they used in the game. It looks really beautiful. I picked up MotorStorm RC, which is the very first game Sony did their cross-buy initiative, where you buy one version and you get on both PS3 and Vita, which I think is one of the coolest things about the Vita.
Yeah, I agree. But you gotta buy it new though. You gotta buy it brand new though, right?
The game.
Yeah. You can't buy a used copy and get all three games, right?
MotorStorm RC was a download-only game. I meant download-only stuff. Although they did do some retail releases where you did get a Vita version. Sly Cooper, PlayStation All-Stars, and I think Ratchet & Clank Q-Force. I think it was called something else in the USA. Whatever reason, they keep changing Ratchet Clank game names in the USA. I don't know why. But yeah, so Q-Force, Sly Cooper, PlayStation All-Stars, they did actually, if you bought the PS3 version, you could actually get a Vita version download.
Oh, wow.
So there were some physical games that did it, but not many. So yeah, MotorStorm RC was basically Micro Machines, but
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Set in the
I know exactly what you're talking about.
So it's like the most...
Go ahead.
Yeah. So it's set in the MotorStorm universe. So it's really cool how each level was like themed around all the previous games. The first one, Pacific Rim, Apocalypse, and Arctic Edge.
But don't you feel like they should have just like released like a traditional MotorStorm game? Like I feel like that would have done.
In a sense,
I feel like
probably.
that would have done so much more than releasing like an RC one.
Yeah, it's a shame. There wasn't many good driving games on the Vita. They did release 3 World Rally Championship games, which I guess is what you could get your off-road fix. And then there was also Escape Plan, which was, I think, the only Vita launch title that actually felt really made sense with all the touchscreen controls, because every game just felt like it was just tacked on, but Escape Plan was kind of built around it. Like Uncharted Golden Abyss, it is cool doing the charcoal rubbing, but when you do it 50 times over, it gets a bit... It just loses its magic. So, yeah.
I read that... I forgot where I read it. It might have been in that book that one YouTuber wrote. I forgot the name of it.
Oh, Too Old for Gaming?
He wrote a book, and I think he mentioned how the mechanics or like the features of the Vita was built before they knew what games they were going to make. So when they were making the games, they told the developers, all right, this is what the system can do. Can you figure out how you can incorporate that game using this feature?
And of course, there was Ridge Racer.
Which one? The Vita?
Yeah, the Vita one. There was only one for the Vita. So
you bought it brand new, right?
No, I got it technically because Touch My Katamari came with a 50% coupon for Ridge Racer, 50% off the download version. So you redeemed the code, and you could get it for I think it was like $16 or $17 Australian, and it came with the first DLC pass, the silver one, but you didn't get the gold pass.
Oh, how many tracks is that? Like 4?
I think like 3, yeah, just a couple of tracks. Like I think in total it's only like 8 or 9 tracks in total. It was not a very good game because there isn't a proper career mode, and the progression is lousy, and it's just peppered with DLC, and it's like playing a version. It reuses assets from Ridge Racer 7 on the PS3, but has less content and less everything. So I don't know. I just don't know why they didn't port over Ridge Racer 7, like lock, stock, and barrel. Like that just would have made more sense. But I just personally prefer Ridge Racer 2 on the PSP. It has double the content and runs at 60 frames per second. Like, it's so smooth, that game, the PSP one. The Vita version just feels so clunky.
We never got Ridge Racer 2, but I know what you're talking about. So I played.
Oh
Had
yeah,
the first one on PSP,
yeah.
but
That shocks me. The second one was never released in America because it's the same as the first one, but
yeah, I
with double
know
the
that's what everyone
content.
tells me. But I mean, I played Ridge Racer on the Vita, and at the time, I thought it was okay. I can understand people being annoyed at the fact there's only 3 cars and whatever amount of tracks that you were given.
It was free tracks and 5
Yeah.
cars if you bought it
Yeah,
used.
but I mean, I thought it was okay for what it was. I wasn't. I think it controlled well. It looked good. It sounded great. But then when I went back and actually played the PSP version of Ridge Racer, I'm just like, wow, this is like 100 times better. Like it just feels so much better. Like I don't know if I was upset from the Vita version or what, but I feel like the one on PSP actually looked better. Like, would you agree? I think it just.
Yeah, it just has this really clean look. Like you actually play it on the PSP emulator, which I've played around with. You can run PSP games at 4K. It looks amazing.
Yeah, it looked better. It ran better. It controlled better for some odd reason,
Yeah. Yeah, it's just very weird how the Vita version was just like a big step back, and it's kind of a shame Ridge Racer no longer has that tradition of launching with PlayStation consoles anymore. Like there was no Ridge Racer for the PS4, which broke the tradition. Because in life there's 3 things you could always depend on: death, taxes, and a new Ridge Racer with every PlayStation.
Yeah, Ridge Racer, man. It was like it was what you expected, right? And then when it was released for like the 360 launch, was it available for the 360 launch?
Yeah, Ridge Racer 6 was a launch title for the 360.
Yeah, that's when you're like, oh, well, I guess times are changing.
Yeah, because Namco was very big on the 360 because this was like Namco was one of the very first earliest companies to really push DLC, and Microsoft had a better return on DLC, so that's why they partnered up with Microsoft. Yeah. So that's why you got Ace Combat 6, Ridge Racer 6, Tales of Vesperia on the 360, and this obviously culminated in Idolmaster on the 360, which had $2,000 worth of DLC.
Wow.
Nothing beats Train Simulator, which has like $10,000 plus DLC on PC.
Oh my god, I played that on the 3DS. Like I could not get the train to to move.
So someone out there has probably bought all the DLC for Train Simulator.
Yeah. But do you think back to the Ridge Racer thing? Don't you think that people have sort of like just outgrown the whole Ridge Racer gameplay? Like, don't you feel like it's just? Don't you feel like it's just not enough these days? Like, it's not enough to go straight, paraslide around the corner, and then do the same thing. Like don't you feel like people just need
True,
more?
but I guess I think it's just more nostalgia for me, I guess, because it would be kind of cool if the PS5 had a Ridge Racer at launch. Like, it just kind of feels like the PlayStation experience, you know what I mean? It's just that. But you're right, like the gameplay, it's definitely a series I think maybe people have just gotten tired of, and I think that's ultimately resulted in its sales. I mean, Namco did do Ridge Racer Unbounded, which was a spin-off that was outsourced to Bugbear, which was a different game. It plays more like Burnout.
Yeah, how was it? Was it like Burnout?
Very well. Yeah, it was like Burnout.
Okay.
It's not a bad little game. You can get really cheap these days. It's like $5.
I heard about it, but I was like, should I? I don't know.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like a Ridge Racer game. Like it's just like Burnout.
I mean, I bet you it would make a good Vita game though. Like,
there was no Burnout on the Vita. There was. Oh wait, we got Need for Speed Most Wanted. That was made by the Burnout developers.
That game was so awesome. I love that game.
Yeah, that's actually a very good Vita port. Like, what's the developer's name? Criterion. Yeah,
It's Criterion.
Yeah, they always do really good ports. They also did the Wii U version of Most Wanted, which actually used the PC textures, so that looks really good as well. So, no, they did a really good job with their ports of Most Wanted. It still impresses me. People still actually play Most Wanted online in droves.
Yes.
Oh, at least by Vita standards.
I mean, there was people on there last time I was on.
So I guess this will tie nicely now with, I guess we'll just talk about the Vita games, like the main ones that kind of blew us away, and we might talk about some of the bad ones. So I guess we'll start with you, Andrew, or Andy.
Blown away, Vita game. Well, there's only one game I can think of that blew me away. on the Vita. Killzone Mercenary. The one game I always talk about on my channel. And the one game I always tell people to buy. Like this, I remember being in line to buy this.
I bought it on day one.
Me too. I bought it on day one.
So yeah, I was so excited to play this game that after I bought it from the shop, I actually pulled out my Vita, undid the shrink wrap, and started playing it on the bus because I was that excited to see how much this game would push the hardware.
Killzone. You know how we talked about like Uncharted Golden Abyss was like a console port of like it was like a console version on your Vita, right? Well, I feel like that's what Killzone is to the Vita. Like it
actually used the same engine as Killzone 3.
It looks so like you think Uncharted looks good. Like just wait till you play Killzone. It looks so freaking good, and it makes me so sad every time I play because I'm just like, oh my goodness! Like just think of what the games could have looked like had the Vita been around a little bit longer. You know, had the Vita survived another year or two, we could have gotten, I don't know, Mercenaries 2, right? And just think of all the tech they could have built on top of that. It's just, I don't know. I just get so sad when I look at that game.
Yeah, the game, sadly, after this, Studio Cambridge, they moved on to making PlayStation VR games. They made rigs, but unfortunately, Sony shut them down very quickly, like they do with all their British studios.
Yeah. That's such a shame. Such a shame. They should have gotten those guys to make the Call of Duty game.
Yeah, we'll get to the Call of Duty when we discuss bad Vita games. But getting back to Killzone, that game was like really impressive at the time. It had graphical effects you rarely saw in handheld games like HDR lighting, the particle effects, the explosions, the texture quality. It looked incredible. And especially that in that initial scene where you're in the wingsuit, like you're flying around and there's buildings collapsing, like the sense of scope is like, wow, I can't believe this is running on a handheld.
I know, like you can tell like the production quality that went into that game. Like they did not skimp out on anything. Like they really.
And
go ahead.
The best part about the Vita version was you could stab people in the balls.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh, so when you do like the melee attack, it like randomizes all these different animations, and you might get lucky with an animation where like just stab someone in the balls with a knife.
Wow, I did not know that.
You probably just never got the animation ever.
Damn.
Which is interesting.
Oh, now I gotta try that out.
Yeah, I remember the initial trailers said, fight clean, fight dirty, and they just shows him like stabbing someone in the balls.
See, I didn't see any initial trailers. I tried to go in clean. I knew there was a Killzone game, and I knew I had to review it that week, so I just went in, bought it, and when I played, I was just blown away.
I think I remember seeing you commenting. I think maybe this is how I discovered your channel. I think I saw you commenting on like game trailers review of it and said my review is better or something. Like.
Oh, that's funny.
I should look up the game trailers review and see your comment's still there. I always say it was shot better. Like you actually did a very good job shooting footage off the screen very well.
Off screen, right? Yeah, I had like there's no other way. There was no capture card at the time, you know.
Yeah, I initially did as well. I played in the dark, and it was
hard. It was hard.
It was very hard. I'm glad I don't have to do that anymore with the
like
Switch.
If you got too much light, it bounces off the screen. If you don't have enough, the screen's too dark, and it's like this weird happy medium that you need to reach. And I don't even know how I got it. It was just sometimes it would work, sometimes it wouldn't.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to go back to doing that.
Absolutely not. I do not want. If I had to do that, I probably would just cover another system. Like I couldn't.
But I might have to do it again one day because I do want to do a video about the Nokia N-Gage one day, but there's like no N-Gage capture device or emulation, so you pretty much have to record it off screen.
I don't think there ever will be a capture card for that.
No, or emulation because the Nokia N-Gage just isn't it hasn't got much of a following to warrant that.
My friend had that. I remember. He comes to my house one day and he pulls out this N-Gage. I'm like, what in the world is that? And it was just, I remember him having like King of Fighters, I think.
Oh, there was King of Fighter games. Yeah, that's one of the rarer games on the N-Gage.
Yeah. And you had to like take the battery out to change the cartridge or something.
I've got the second model that doesn't require.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. But anyway, back to
Killzone.
Right. Yeah, I think what made the game really stand out was we had the disappointing Resistance, Burning Skies, and Call of Duty. Although in hindsight, I actually think Resistance is not a bad game. Actually, if I play it again, but there was also a lot of hype for Killzone because Resistance and Call of Duty really disappointed people.
See, I hadn't played Resistance yet. When did that come out? 2012? Was that a launch title?
It came out a few months after launch. It was May 2012.
See, I don't think I had a Vita yet. So by the time I got it, Killzone was like a few months away, I think.
Yeah. Good timing. So yeah, I think one of the cool things about Killzone Mercenary was you could tell they took a lot of inspiration from GoldenEye because there's you can play the game again on multiple difficulties and have different objectives. And the way he just pulls up his, when you pause the menu or buy weapons, he brings up his arm. It's kind of like the watch from from GoldenEye.
Yeah, I remember. Right.
So
the the fire effects, which I'm really big on fire effects for some reason. I don't know why. Because I feel like any game that can do fire and smoke really well is like. I
think you said that in your Uncharted review once, the first one.
You had a good memory, dude.
It's because I have autism, so good memory comes with a package. So yeah, one thing I really liked about Killzone Mercenary was your unlocks and experience from the single player campaign carried over to the multiplayer. Because the thing with competitive online gaming is that unless you're there on day one, you get left behind. You got to keep playing. You got to be there on day one. But with Killzone Mercenary, you could play the campaign for dozens of hours. And when you jump on the online multiplayer, you would be good to go. You would be on the level playing field, have enough equipment to have a very be competitive. And I wish more shooters would do that because it definitely makes it very hard to approach an online shooter when, as soon as you jump in, if you're late, you're just left for dust if you're not there on day one.
I don't know. I just remember really liking it and just being really impressed with it. I don't think I have any complaints about that game. I feel like that's the perfect game to really show off what the Vita can do. People ask me.
The story's a bit hokey.
I mean, it's Killzone, so they're all kind of hokey, right?
Yeah. Although I haven't played it wasn't made by Guerrilla Games proper. It was made by Cambridge. But Guerrilla Games always had bad writing. Although Horizon Zero Dawn, I've heard that's got good writing. I've got to really sit down and play
Me too.
That.
I have that, and I have not opened it up yet.
So yeah, when looking back at the Vita's library, probably one of the most critically acclaimed games on the system was no doubt Tearaway.
Oh, I love that game.
Yeah. It's always saddens me it never sold well. In the PS4 version, didn't even sell well. I remember
it's one of those games that nobody wants to buy for some reason. I don't know why.
Yeah, my local Big W, they had a dozen copies marked down to $2 each. They were so desperate to get rid of this is the PS4 version.
They can give that game away,
Yeah, they eventually sold them through, but yeah, it's really depressing. You look at Dreams, another game from Meteor Molecule. It's got no marketing, and yet it's the highest rated game of this year so far.
But does that mean it's gonna sell?
That's the thing. Is Akami back in the day didn't sell very well, and that won every game.
And how many times was that released? How many times was that ported?
Well, obviously for word of mouth, it's slowly getting an audience. But Dreams isn't going to get ported because it's built around the online infrastructure, the game sharing. But I am going to pick up Dreams this week because of the I'm just going to wait for the community to build some stuff, and I'll definitely get into it. But Tearaway was really just when I was a little kid, I was obsessed with origami, and so Tearaway was that, but in video game form. Yeah. And I was really into doing collages and stuff when I was a kid, and it just kind of taps into that part of your childhood, just
That-
seeing the
yeah.
whole world being constructed out of paper.
It just fulfills that itch for like creativity, you know.
Yeah. I never actually tried this mechanic, but I believe there's an online service you can sync up the game where it actually print out like things you can actually fold up to replicate things from the game.
I didn't sync anything up, but I know there's a website where you can just print out like the same characters. Because I know
Which I think is just...
I did a video where I made a squirrel, I think. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I crushed it at the end.
But it was also a very good game. Like the platforming was on point, and it was one of those very few. I just love the whole thing is that the game actually used the Vita's gimmicks in a good way. So you actually part of the experience, like the camera broadcast your face into it, like you're trying to get Iota out of the Vita. He's trapped in the Vita. I know there's a female version of the character, but I'm just going with the male character. And if you use the back touchscreen, your fingers will appear in the game.
I know it was one of those games that sort of like broke the fourth wall, right? And it utilized all the features of the Vita, and they did it well, you know. Like they actually like I could see a purpose for the back touch when I played that game. I'm like, all right, this makes sense. I can see why they invested in this, right? But the bad thing is that it was only one game that actually took advantage of it. I mean, you can argue that. I was just gonna say that. Yeah,
Escape Plan did a good job of it, but yeah, those two games are pretty much it.
Which is a shame.
Actually, one of the best use of the touchscreen was, you should look up clips of this, was Senran Kagura. Because so in Senran Kagura, there's actually a jerking off minigame where you use both the back and front touchscreen.
Well, what was that rated?
But yeah, Tearaway was definitely one of the better uses of the gimmicks. Like you could blow into the microphone to blow away enemies.
Oh, that's another tragedy from the Vita catalog. One of those games that really showed like the potential of what the Vita could do, you know.
And the PS4 version is really cool. Is that they actually redesigned some parts of the game that kind of built around the idea you're playing the game on the TV and the touchpad. So it's not like a 1-to-1 port. Like they actually kind of rewrote some of the game.
Is it the same story that you go through, or do they change?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're trying to get Iota out of your PS4.
Okay. Cool.
I definitely recommend the PS4 version. My only disappointment is it never got a PS4 Pro patch. That game just look so gorgeous in 4K. But Knack did. Knack got a PS4 Pro patch.
Which is weird, right? Like, who's playing Knack?
I don't know. But I think maybe it's because they're making Knack 2. I guess the development team could easily just jump in the same engine and code and just patch the first one for PS4 Pro.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But yeah, it's kind of sad. Knack sold well, but Tearaway didn't.
I don't know. That hurts. I feel like because I can just see the hard work and creativity that went into Tearaway. It's such a shame to see that game not being played by anybody.
Yeah, I can't wait till Knack 3 gets announced for PS5.
Oh god.
Another noteworthy Vita game is Gravity Rush. Did you ever play Gravity Rush?
I haven't. I've never beat it, but I played like maybe a quarter of it.
It just didn't captivate you?
It did. The thing it was, I think something came up at the time, and I had to put the game down. And then too much time went by, and I just didn't know where I was, or I didn't know how the controls worked, and I didn't feel like just starting over again. But from what I played, I really liked. I liked the presentation, the kind of like comic book icky style kind of look, and it was good. But it's just one of those games that just I don't know, just never got to finish.
See, I absolutely loved Gravity Rush. I actually picked it up on day one, and I'm a big fan of French animation, films like Triplets of Belleville, The Illusionist, and A Cat in Paris. A lot of people mistakenly say that Gravity Rush is based on anime and manga, but it's not. It's based on French comics and animation. In fact, in the game, they actually speak French gibberish, and it is gibberish because it's done by Japanese actors.
Okay. I know there was a remaster in the PS4, right?
Yes, it was done by Bluepoint.
Oh, they're so good.
They're definitely the masters of remastering. So yeah, I really liked Gravity Rush, but I have to admit, even though the game was open world, it did feel a bit empty and there wasn't a lot to do in the game. It felt more like a tech demo of what potentially could be, and that was realized more in the sequel. But I still did enjoy the game a lot. The atmosphere, the visuals, the jazz music.
Yeah, I like the atmosphere. Music was good.
And, the whole flying around and your companion is a cat, which is really cute. I have to admit, the game probably isn't that great, but it's one of those games where the whole feel and atmosphere of the game captivates you so much that you can easily overlook the flaws.
Like the color was good, like the whole the way like the environments were presented to you. I mean, it was kind of barren. I feel like I feel like there could have been more side missions to make the town come alive a little bit. I mean, it was open world, but it felt really linear in how you approached it. But I mean, it was nice to run around like the environments. It could have used a little more to make the place feel alive, I guess. But I don't know.
I definitely agree, and as I said earlier, that potential was realized more in the sequel.
And that's another game that didn't sell, right?
No, it didn't sell very well. In fact, a couple of months ago at Paris Games Week, there was a PlayStation fan quiz, and nobody could recognize a picture of Cat from Gravity Rush.
Oh man, that's painful.
And you have to remember, this is a game that was inspired by French animation and comics.
I guess it's just one of those games that fell through the cracks.
Yeah, it's a shame that Sony didn't put enough marketing hype into the game. But there's also actually an anime of Gravity Rush done by Studio Gahara, who also made the Evangelion films. You can actually watch the whole thing for free on YouTube, so definitely check it out when you have some spare time.
Oh, wow. I'll look into that.
As many people know, the big system seller for the PSP in Japan was Monster Hunter, and since Sony lost that exclusivity of the franchise, they tried to fill the gap in with multiple Monster Hunter clones, and one of the notable ones was Freedom Wars, which I think had a really cool premise. You're in prison for 1,000,000 years and you have to work off the sentence by completing tasks.
Yeah. But I don't know. I think by that time, like the writing was already on the wall. It was just, I don't think by that point anything could have saved the Vita. It was just they had such a crappy launch. It was just, I don't know.
No. The game actually sold very well in Japan. It sold over 200,000 copies in the first week. There's actually a lot of merchandise for the game over there. When I was in Tokyo, I bought myself a Freedom Wars pencil case and screen cloth.
Yeah. Oh wait, how did it sell well in the States or?
I've never seen sales outside of Japan, but initially the game was not going to get a physical release in PAL regions until there was a big protest on the PlayStation blog in Europe. So I guess that shows you how little effort Sony put into the game.
Which is a shame because it's a Sony published game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a Sony IP.
Yeah. You would think they'd push their own product.
I think the fact they didn't dub it kind of shows they just really didn't bank on the game that much. Another game that Sony didn't dub was Orishika Tainted Bloodlines. Have you played this game?
Orishika. Why does this sound so familiar?
Okay. Orishika Tainted Bloodlines is a sequel to an old PS1 RPG, and they're both very similar as in their soul breeding game. So basically this demon puts a curse on your family so that every future generation will live a full lifespan in just a few years. So you have to clear dungeons and breed with these gods and goddesses to, enhance your future generations and eventually, kick the demon, defeat the demon that put the curse on your family in the first place.
See? Look at all these games I've never heard of. And I'm the one with the Vita channel.
But I recently played Freedom Wars Online recently, and the online lobby system is one of the smoother Monster Hunter clones I've seen. If you ever played Monster Hunter World, God help you, that lobby system is horrible.
No, I never played that.
it drove my friends insane just trying to sync up a co-op game going.
Wow. I mean, I played Freedom Wars Online, and I will admit, I mean, it is pretty smooth.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree. So yeah, I really did enjoy that game a lot. And you get to customize your own waifu.
Oh man, I think I put mine in like a bunny costume or something. I don't know. I can't even remember.
I think you need to get outside and meet real women. As Robert quietly looks at his Senran Kagura collection.
I don't think I have one Senran, what do you call it?
Senran Kagura.
Yeah. I need to get into that.
So, did you ever play Soul Sacrifice Delta or the vanilla version?
I played the first one, Soul Sacrifice. But it wasn't until a lot later, till when everyone had moved on to Delta. But, I mean, that's another one that's really good.
I picked up Soul Sacrifice and Delta. In fact, it's the only Monster Hunter clone I ever finished. Because the great thing about Soul Sacrifice is that the menu system allows you to instantly jump into the battles. And each one only takes around a couple of minutes. So it was perfect for my bus trips to university.
Yeah, they were like perfect for what like the Vita was, you know? You could finish one in like what, 5, maybe even less than 5 minutes.
So yeah, there was a lot of Monster Hunter clones on the Vita. There was Tokiden, which was a Dynasty Warriors style Monster Hunter. I need to play more of that. There was God Eater and Ragnarok Odyssey.
Yeah, heard of that. See, I'm not really big into like the Monster Hunter stuff, so I never really, I don't really cover that kind of stuff, you know. And the thing is, what's how many hours you sink into that? Like 40, 50 hours?
Soul Sacrifice, about 30 hours.
Yeah, because those games take so. You have to figure. I have to play the game. I gotta record the the gameplay, and it's just. I'll spend like a month on one review, and I don't even know if that review is gonna get like hits or not, you know. So I tried to like
but
go ahead.
But at least you actually finished the game and put effort into it. I'm not going to name names, but there's a lot of YouTubers, big YouTubers out there who have really small trophy ranks
because they don't play the games, half the games they talk about, you know.
So I'm just trying to think of what other notable Vita games there were. I think we kind of covered. Oh yeah, Persona 4 Golden. I can't believe we never thought of that.
Oh my goodness!
I guess because I always think of it.
Oh damn!
I always think of it as a PS2 game, so I never really think.
I never played the PS2, so I jumped right into like Golden. So I didn't know what people were talking about when they told me to play it. They're like, "You need to play Persona 4. You know, it's the best game." I'm like, "What's so good about this game?" And I went into it. It was just, it is like, I don't know. It's just how everything is done, like the environment. The soundtrack, the dialogue, it's like
it just all clicks.
It just makes sense and it works so well together, you know? It's like streamlined, but at the same time there's like variety and there's like so many things you can do, and even though you don't really do it, you just sort of just sit there and watch yourself do it. It feels like I don't know, I just feel like you're doing it, you know? You go to the movies. He's just riding his motorcycle to the movies, and then you come back, and then you're done. But it just feels like you're given that option to do so many things in this game. I don't know.
The beauty of the Persona games is that even though it's technically an open world style RPG, the environment is much more smaller and it feels more intimate. Combine that with the fact that you live the entire year of someone's life, and it just feels more personal as you create these connections with these really well written and well voiced characters.
Yeah.
I first played Persona 4 on the PS2, and I knew a friend who was equally hyped for Golden as me. So because the game was going to come out in America 3 months ahead of Australia, we actually paid express shipping for 2 copies from the USA.
Wow.
Because we needed it now.
Oh, man.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed Persona 4 Golden. It's a really good example of how you do a re-release, because they added so much new content that it almost feels like you're playing the game again for the first time. They added 2 new social links, additional cutscenes, additional events like the Halloween and skiing event. There's a few other little side quests like the gardening. They redid some of the voiceovers and added additional voiceovers. And of course, they added new personas. And there's also a few additional difficulty modes. So yeah, it really did add enough content to warrant a second purchase. Compare that to some re-releases like God of War 3 Remastered, where it just didn't add enough to the point you're like...
The one on the PS4?
Yeah, God of War 3 Remastered.
Okay.
It just felt like you're playing the PS3 version.
Yeah, it was just like the frame rate was just slightly better, you know?
Yeah, because the game already looked and was very smooth enough on the PS3, so it just didn't feel like it was necessary.
Right.
But Atlas has always been very good with their re-releases. Like, they recently re-released Catherine.
Oh, that's another one I haven't
Full Body
played.
Edition. Yeah, Catherine Full Body Edition. They added a new character. They redid the dialogue. They changed the engine. They went from the Gamebryo engine to the Persona engine. So it's a really massive overhaul. So Persona 4 Golden, yeah, it's definitely the game. It's still the highest reviewed game on the Vita. Like, I think there's nothing. The only thing I can complain about Persona 4 Golden is that it definitely has a very slow start. Like, I think it takes like 2 hours, like the initial cutscenes,
very slow
before you get to the gameplay.
But the thing is, if you know what you're getting yourself into, like, you wouldn't care. You know, it's just that people who are not used to that kind of game, that's what's gonna like throw them off.
Oh, the other annoying thing, and this is one of my pet peeves of the game, is that if your main character dies, that's it. It's game over. You can't revive him like the other characters. So
okay.
That was also annoying. I hate that in the Persona games. So aside from that, it's like perfect entertainment.
I think it has everything. You know, it has like, it feels like a high school drama, but at the same time, it feels like a horror movie kind of thing. You know, when the TV comes on, I don't want to spoil, like, you know, when the TV comes on and you get the blurry screen, it's kind of creepy, right? I feel like it has everything, and it works. I don't know, everything just works together. Now, if the Vita was still around, we'd be getting a Persona 5 port, okay?
And that could be doable because Catherine Full Body Edition was released for the Vita last year, but only in Japan, and it does use the same engine as Persona 5, I think. I'll have to double check.
I mean, if they could get Persona 5 on the PS3, I don't see why the Vita couldn't handle it.
Yeah, well, Persona 5 was originally meant to be just a PS3 game.
Oh, really?
Yeah. But, I mean, Persona 4 was released on the PS2, like, I want to say 2 or 3 years after the PS3 had come out. So Atlas has always done that thing where they release games at the end of a console's life. But I think they were surprised by how fast people adopted the PS4. Because you have to remember, the PS3's adoption was a slow burn.
Yeah. It's like 5 years later, I think.
So I think we should talk about what is our least favorite Vita game? What was the most disappointing game?
Well, I don't know if this is my least favorite, but I can tell you it was one of my most disappointed games. All right. You ever heard of a game called Batman
Arkham Origins. I bought that on day one.
Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate?
Blackgate, yeah.
Okay, well, here's a funny story, okay? So, it was released the same day as the console Arkham Origins. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I played that as well.
Full open world Batman game, right? So I'm at GameStop, midnight release. Everyone in line is there to pick up Batman Arkham Origins on the PS3 or 360. I'm the only one in line asking for the Vita version of Blackgate. Okay? That's how hardcore I was for the Vita. I'm like, you got another copy? He's like, yeah, what version? Oh, the Vita. And he looks at me. He's like, what?
What?
I'm like, the Vita. Dude, there was a cop in the store, okay? There was a cop. He wasn't there to monitor the crowd. He was there to pick up his own copy of Batman Arkham Origins on PS3. That's how much everybody wanted the console version. So I go in there, I pick it up, I run home. I try to play this game as quickly as I can to get the review out by the next day, which is almost impossible. And I'm playing it. I'm just like, what? This game sucks. Like, I mean, it was okay in the beginning. I'm like, all right, I can get behind this. This isn't too bad, right? And it wasn't until I had to like backtrack to get like some item that I forgot, and the map
It was the
Good.
It was the same developers as Metroid Prime. Ex Metroid Prime
Good
developers.
God, the map system was horrendous. Like, you could not tell what level you were on from the map. It was just like you could be on the first floor and go to the third floor and still be on the same spot on the map. So you would have to visually remember where like you were without the use of the map. It was just, I don't know, man. It was just so, it was not it was so disappointing, man. I felt like running back to GameStop and just getting the console version.
See, I have finished the game, and I actually didn't hate it that much. I actually thought it was very enjoyable, but I can see your problem there because unlike most Metroidvania games, it's not a constant 2D plane, it's 2.5D, and it sort of does these 90 degrees turns.
I mean, the effect looks cool, I will admit.
Yeah, I can definitely see a problem with the map. It would have been so much better if it was just a constant 2D plane, like something like Guacamelee, and because the core Metroidvania elements are there.
Yeah,
it's just
it is.
The design is just very confusing.
I feel like some of the objectives could have been a little more clear because I remember being stuck in one section. I don't know where it was, but it was just I did not know where to go. I kept dying in that room with the smoke gas or the laughing gas or something. Like, I did not know where to go.
Like, I still enjoyed the game. I finished it, and the touchscreen was used pretty neatly with the detective sequences. If I remember correctly, there was 3 bosses, and if you got different endings depending on in which order you defeat them.
Yeah.
They actually did a remaster of Blackgate on PC, PS3, 360, and Wii U.
Oh, did they fix the map?
Yeah, they actually fixed the map. It's now a 3D model, but I should sit down and play the PC remaster. But I can see why this game was disappointing for you because you're a big comic book guy. If I remember correctly, you did actually do a documentary about comic books once.
Yeah. Yep.
So I guess it's my turn, and I probably think the most disappointing Vita game for most people was probably Call of Duty Declassified.
See, I have mixed feelings about that game because well, first of all, I don't know much about Call of Duty, right? You ask a guy who knows a lot, who'll probably tell you, this is nothing like Call of Duty. But I mean, for what it's worth, I really thought the multiplayer was fun, right? I mean, I'm pretty sure, like, there's a lot of what do you call it when you spawn next to another guy and you instantly get killed? What do you call that?
Yeah, respawn. Camping?
I don't know. It's like instant death spawn or something. I don't know what the term is, but they said that was a big problem with it. I didn't really
camping.
I didn't really know it was a problem because to me that was just an easy kill. All right. Yeah. Watch me get flamed for saying that. All right. Yeah. The campaign was just. Yeah. The campaign was awful. You know what? I take it back. Because that's my least favorite game.
I mean, Blackgate can still be the most disappointing one because you actually had hype for it because you're there at midnight launch.
Know.
So
$40, man.
But yeah, Call of Duty Declassified. I think it was made by Nihilistic. I think it was the development team, which seems very appropriate name. Nihilism.
Burning Skies. Burning Skies.
Yeah. But they obviously had more time for Burning Skies because I assume they finished up Burning Skies and only had 5 months for Declassified because it just shows.
I don't understand what they were thinking. Like, why would you give a development team 5 months to make a Call of Duty game that could potentially help you sell like units?
The funny thing is Activision didn't even know what the game looked like. I believe it was a deal done by Sony. I'll have to double check that. But because when the Vita was first announced at the MGP, like a year before the Vita even came out, they announced there was going to be a new Call of Duty for the game, but there was like no information for it for a long time. And then at Gamescom, like 2 months away from the game's release, they showed us really underwhelming trailer for Call of Duty Declassified. And that was the last thing they showed at the end. Like, that was like the big finale for Gamescom.
Wow. And look what it turned out to.
Yeah, I feel like it's just like, well, it's got a Call of Duty name, it'll sell. But yeah, you can just tell they just knew the campaign was going to be short, so they purposely made the game super hard, even on easy, and there's no checkpoints.
I don't even think the game's hard. I just think the game's just you just like the game's so like glitchy that it's. You know what I mean? It's not hard because it's hard. It's just the way the game was designed that makes it hard.
I think it's more. I mean, it's more hard that the enemies have really pinpoint accuracy. Like they really ramped up the accuracy of the enemies. But yeah, the controls aren't particularly good. The problem is the auto aim is so aggressive, and the acceleration's really bad because when you try to aim down your sights, you just instantly snap to down your sights. So it just really throws you off.
Now, did you notice when you look down the sights, you notice how the gun like shoots straight up sometimes past the target? Or was that just me?
Yeah, because the aim... No, I noticed that as well. It's because the aim assist is so poorly tuned.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes it would snap like to the enemy, which is good. But other times, it would just like overshoot the target. And I told that to someone online, and they're like, oh, you don't know what flinching is. Or... Well, I don't even know what that is. Is that something in Call of Duty?
I don't know what it means. I'm not a Call of Duty expert. I've played most of the Call of Duty games, but I'm just there.
Okay, we're gonna get. I'm just telling you, no, we're gonna get flamed for that because we don't know.
Yeah, we're gonna get flamed for this. But Call of Duty's campaign's always very well made. Like I feel like they're highly underrated. Yes. And Black Ops 2 does have a really good campaign.
Yes, I just played that recently. That is so good. So good. And I'm not even Call of Duty fan. Like, I don't even give a crap about that franchise. And even I thought it was cool.
Yeah. Like, I think they're very underrated, the campaigns. Like, in Black Ops 2, you have the multiple endings, the multiple choices, and you go back and forth between the Cold War and the future. So it really creates this amazing variety. And Declassified it just hasn't got that at all.
No, it's like they didn't care. They're just like, well... Call of Duty 2 is coming out soon. We're going to release this game at the same time because it's Call of Duty.
The thing I always never got with the Vita was, why did they choose to release the portable iteration on the same day as their bigger brother? I mean, with Black Ops Declassified, they released it the same day as Black Ops 2. Liberation came out the same day as Assassin's Creed 3 proper. Batman Arkham Origins Blackgate also came out the same day as its bigger brother.
I'll tell you why. Because they want to ride off the hype of the console version. They figured, all right, everyone's getting the console. We're going to release it when everyone else is getting it. Like they don't want to release it later because everyone's going to forget about it.
But see, here's the thing is that when you were buying Blackgate at the midnight launch, did you see anyone buying both the PS3 and the Vita version at the same time?
No. They figured they could get...
See, there you go.
I know.
People don't have money to buy both games at the same time, and people always going to gravitate towards the bigger budget home console version. So it would have made more sense to release the portable iteration a bit earlier to cash in on the hype, act as an appetizer. And I definitely think that wasn't a very good idea. It was very silly. And I think this leads us towards our discussion about why we think the Vita failed. So, Andrew, we'll start with you.
I think it was the wrong console at the wrong time. I mean, there's so many reasons, but like it was the wrong console at the wrong time. It was a time when like cell phone games were getting really big, right? People didn't want a dedicated console just to play games. And plus, you're gonna look. I mean, I don't believe this, but most people look at it like this way. When you pull out a little handheld to play games, you look kind of like, I don't know, dorky.
A nerd.
Like a nerd, You don't want to look. But when you pull out a cell phone, you could be doing...
You look like an adult.
Yeah, you could be doing a whole number of things, You could be checking your mail, playing a game, texting someone. So it was more socially acceptable. So I think that really hurt the Vita. Those overpriced memory cards didn't help, even the cheapest one was expensive. Too many like useless features that just ramped up the price of the initial price tag. Like you got the back touch, you had the gyroscope, you had a camera that didn't even look that great. You had what else did you have? Like memory cards. I mentioned that. I feel like if
There was a built-in microphone, but that was really good for chats if you didn't have a headset.
yes,
so.
that I agree with, but like nobody really knew about that, right? I feel like if they had just kept the front touch and maybe like a mic, right, and they just used everything else to add in an R2 and an L2, that would have added like so much more value to the Vita. Like developers could actually use it to make a near perfect port of a console game, right? It would be like what the Switch is today.
Yeah, it doesn't have a back touchpad, but it does have that, like, I don't know what it is, that sensor it has on one. Yeah, I don't know what it's called.
I think it was just too much, too soon. No, I wouldn't say too soon, but it was just too much. Like we didn't need all that crap.
So I guess it's time for me to tackle why I think the Vita failed. As I mentioned earlier, the Vita did not support Unreal Engine 3, which made it very difficult to bring over certain games. Retailers were pretty much burnt by the PSP. The PSP ended on a weak note, and obviously some retailers weren't enthusiastic about the Vita. As I mentioned earlier, Big W, Target, and Kmart initially did not carry the Vita at launch in Australia, with only Big W changing their stance. I also think the memory cards didn't help, but I don't think they were the major factor that destroyed the Vita like many people suggested did. It certainly didn't help, especially later in the system's life when Sony was pushing a more digital focus with indie games, and it really deterred you from buying digital games when the memory cards were so expensive. But I don't think the memory cards took a massive chunk out of the Vita, because look at the PSP. It had the proprietary memory Sony Duos, but that didn't hurt the PSP's success. In fact, in the UK at launch, the PSP actually outsold the DS. I do think some of the more bigger factors was certainly the global recession. People just didn't have the money for technology. In Japan, their economy was heavily weakened by the Tokyo earthquakes. And as you said earlier in the pre-discussion, people were being drawn to the PS3. Sony was hyping up the PS3, games like Uncharted 3, Killzone 3, Skyrim had just came out in the last year on the PS3, and now Sony's like, buy this Vita. And you also have to remember is that Sony's brand was heavily weakened at this point because they were still doing the ongoing repair of the PS3 brand. See, during the PSP days, Sony was on top of the world. Like the PS2 just dominated the market. So obviously that trickled down the PSP success. But with the Vita, Sony's brand was still recovering, and as I said earlier, couple that with a global recession, it just wasn't that very exciting to buy another piece of hardware when people were obviously doing it tough. I also think mobile phones definitely took a big chunk out of the Vita, more so than it did with Nintendo, because the thing is, even though the PSP had great games, when people cracked out a PSP, they definitely showed you the gains, but they hyped up other aspects like the multimedia functionality, like I can listen to music, and I know people who bought a PSP solely as an MP3 player because it was a good MP3 player. It had no DRM. You just plop the MP3s and you're good to go. So yeah, people would show you the MP3s, I can store pictures, I can watch the UMD movies, and I can explore the female body with the internet browser.
Yeah.
Well, it was high school and people were going through puberty, so what do you expect? Anyway, once smartphones came out, Sony had to sell the PSP on the merits of just the games. And while there was good games in the PSP, there was nothing that was like, that's a PSP game. That's the reason I have to buy a PSP. At least outside Japan. In Japan, they actually had Monster Hunter, and that was a big thing that drew a lot of people to the PSP in Japan and encouraged a lot of Japanese developers to make big gains for the PSP. And the fact that Sony lost the Monster Hunter exclusivity, I do think was a big deal in Japan. Maybe it would have become a thing at some point in the Vita in the West, we don't know. I highly doubt it. I think the fact that Monster Hunter World was on, the big mainstream PS4 and Xbox One is what sold units. But I do think if Sony could have kept Monster Hunter, it would have been a net benefit to the ecosystem because they would have had all these big games. That's the reason why Peace Walker was on the PSP, because Monster Hunter drew so many Japanese developers to the PSP. And unfortunately, the Vita also never got that one game that's a Vita game. That's an experience I can only get on the Vita. Sure, the Vita had good games like Killzone and Uncharted, and of course Tearaway, but you can also get those games on Sony consoles. So what's that one game on the Vita you can only get on the Vita? There isn't one. There isn't a mainstream game that will make people want to buy a Vita. On the same scale as Pokemon, in its way to shift Nintendo handhelds. Nintendo's been very good at keeping that core Pokemon RPG experience exclusive to their handhelds, and that's the reason why their handheld still dominates. Because the funny thing is, even though the Vita was a failure, if you exclude the PSP, it's still the best-selling non-Nintendo handheld. And that really shows you how much Nintendo just dominates the handheld landscape.
I think because it took so much to produce the Vita, it was one of those things that needed to be super successful super quickly, They couldn't just spread out the sales of the Vita. It just had to sell instantly. And when it didn't, they sort of just threw in the towel. Kind of like how the Dreamcast was.
Yeah, although to be fair, the Dreamcast, Sega was already deep in the black at the time.
I know. They were in trouble before even the Dreamcast launched, so.
Yeah. With the Vita, obviously Sony's not as rich as they were back during the PS2 days, and I think maybe that was a factor because Sony's lost so much money with other divisions. So, I think PlayStation accounts for the vast majority of their profits. So
yeah, because the TVs are not really selling. I mean, they got out of the phone market, I think. Are they still in the phone market?
Yeah, they're still in the phone market. I wonder if the new James Bond film will still have him using a Sony phone. So yeah, I think Sony was obviously not in the best position financially. Sony lost so much money with the PS3. PSVR is very interesting because it's sold worse than the Vita, but Sony still pushes it. But I think it's because they're the market leader. I think that just seems to be Sony's habit. Unless it's like, you've ever seen that movie Talladega Nights?
Yeah.
If you're not in first, you're in last. That seems to be Sony's mentality.
I know, because they're afraid the VR might catch on, and they just want to make sure that VR is there just in case it does catch on. They'll say, "Oh, we got VR,"
and PSVR is actually the best-selling VR headset. It actually is, even though it's only sold 5 million units.
I'm surprised VR hasn't caught on.
Because I think it's the price, and people with disabilities probably can't get into it easily. And plus, you have to be over 12. Kids can't do it because your eyes are still developing.
Yeah. So are they really into that, or they're just just in case?
Sony's bring out the Iron Man game VR that's published by Sony that comes out in 3 months.
You think it'll be a bigger hit? I mean, they'll focus more on VR once the PS5 hits?
They have announced they are going to make a VR headset for the PS5, although they say your current one will work with the PS5 because, it's just a screen really and motion controls. It doesn't need additional processing. Oh, it does come with a processing box, but So yeah, I think that kind of about wraps it up. So thank you, Andrew, for joining me today on the very first podcast. Hopefully this becomes a reoccurring series.
Oh man, how long were we talking for? I can't, dude. It's dark over here. It's
still 9 a.m. in Australia.
Oh wow, it's only been an hour and a half. I feel like I've been here for all day.
Which I don't know if that's a compliment or.
All right, man.
So yeah, thank you, Andrew, for joining me. Hopefully I can get you on the show again so we can discuss the Dreamcast because I know you're very fond of that system.
Man, you really keep up with my videos, man. You really keep up.
Well, it's not my fault most YouTubers suck. I'm probably your biggest fan. So Andrew, where can people contact you?
They can find me on SuperJumpReviews. There'll be a link in the description below.
Well, that's assuming your check doesn't bounce.
Like, comment, subscribe. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Andrew. Bye.
All right, cool.